You've heard the stories before. A stranger's name on the news, a ticket worth hundreds of millions, and you picture yourself in it for half a second before you scroll past. You've heard the other half too, the winners who went broke, who disappeared, who ended up back where they started. You never think it's you. Then your card gets declined for a $4 coffee under the gas station's buzzing light, and the ticket in your pocket, bought on a whim 2 days ago, starts matching numbers on your phone you didn't expect to matter. Winning the jackpot in secret. The first number matches, then the second. You tell yourself it's a coincidence, the kind that happens to other people in headlines you scroll past. Then the third number lands, and your hand goes still against the gas pump display. The numbers on your phone and the numbers on the ticket sitting there refusing to be a coincidence anymore. Behind you, Denise is ringing up a case of Bud Light and a lighter for the guy in line, her scanner beeping in a rhythm that suddenly sounds very far away. You don't move. You don't breathe right. By the fifth number, your chest has gone tight in a way that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with fear's twin, the kind that shows up wearing a different face. 6 numbers, all 6. You don't say anything. That's the part that surprises you. Not the shock, but the silence underneath it. No gasp, no laugh, no calling out to the stranger next to you at the pump. You just stand there in the buzzing light, holding a ticket that's worth more than every house on your street combined, and the only sound is Denise asking the guy in line if he wants a receipt. You fold the ticket once, then again, until it's small enough to disappear into your front pocket. The one with the button, the one you never use. Your hands are doing this without asking your permission. Some older, quieter part of you already knows this ticket is not something you show anyone yet. Not your neighbor, not your brother, not the woman 2 feet away buying beer. Especially not her. You get back in the car. You don't turn the key right away. You sit there with your hands on the wheel at 10 and 2, engine off. You do the math badly. The way people do math when they're not really doing math. $600 million, the number the gas station sign had bolted underneath the price of unleaded all week. The number you joked about with a coworker named Trevor 2 days ago while you were both pretending your retirement accounts weren't a disaster. It wasn't a joke. It was you, standing in this exact spot, buying one ticket with the $6 you had left after gas. You drive home on autopilot, past the Whataburger, past the church with the marquee that still says, God sees you, even on Tuesdays, past your own mailbox with the dent in it from the winter you can't afford to fix. Your porch light is on. Your partner's car is in the driveway, exactly where it always is, exactly like every other Tuesday you've come home to this house. You sit in the driveway for 4 full minutes before you go inside. Nothing about your kitchen has changed. The same water stain on the ceiling, the same drawer that doesn't close all the way. You stand there holding a folded piece of paper that could buy the block, and you realize the ticket in your pocket isn't a windfall yet. It's a decision. The second you say the number out loud, to anyone, it stops being yours to control. So you don't say it. Not tonight. You kiss your partner hello like it's any other night, and you go looking, quietly, for what happens to a person the moment they win. And what it takes, legally, to make sure the world never finds out you did. Choosing anonymity on the claim form. The attorney's office is on the 9th floor of a glass building in downtown Austin, and the receptionist doesn't ask why you're there, which tells you Grant Whitfield gets visitors like you more often than his website would suggest. He shakes your hand once, sits you down across a desk with nothing on it but a legal pad, and says the sentence that's been sitting under your ribs since the gas station. First thing, don't sign the back of that ticket. You look down at it, still folded in your pocket where it's lived for 3 days now, and you realize you almost had. Signing it makes it yours. Publicly, permanently, the second someone photographs it. Grant slides a blank claim form across the desk instead, and near the bottom, small enough that you'd have missed it on your own, there's a box. Prize winner elects to remain anonymous. He explains it like he's done it 40 times, because he has. Texas lets you check that box if the win is $1 million or more, which, he says without smiling, this qualifies for by a fairly wide margin. But the box only holds if you also take the cash option instead of the annuity. Annuity payments release your name after 30 days, regardless, lump sum and anonymity or nothing. You ask what the cash option actually comes to, and he turns his laptop around. The number on the lottery sign was $600 million. The number on his screen, next to cash value, is $264 million. You feel your stomach do something complicated. Not disappointment exactly, more like vertigo, watching $600 million lose more than half its size before you've spent a cent of it. That's before taxes, he adds, and you notice he says it the way a doctor delivers a diagnosis that's serious but survivable. He tells you what comes next, and it isn't glamorous. A revocable trust drafted this week with a name that isn't yours. He suggests something forgettable, something you'd scroll past, and you land on the Cedar Fork Family Trust, after the creek behind your childhood house. The trust claims the prize. The trust's name goes on the public record if anyone ever bothers to look. Yours doesn't. Who else knows? He asks. And it's not small talk. He needs the number. You think about it honestly. Your partner, eventually, has to. Your mother doesn't, not yet. Not until you understand what telling her turns into. Trevor from work absolutely never does. You say two people, and Grant writes it down like it's a variable in an equation. He's already solved 100 times, one where every additional name is a point of failure. He asks if you understand what you're agreeing to, not the paperwork, the shape of the next several years. No public reveal, no local news segment holding an oversized check, not answering the door to relatives you haven't spoken to since a wedding in 2019. Just a signature, a trust, and a life that looks, from the outside, exactly like it did last Tuesday. You sign where he points. The pen feels heavier than it should. Walking out of that building, you're not a lottery winner in any way the world can see. You're just a person in business casual clothes taking the elevator down to a parking garage, holding a folder instead of a check. Because the check, and everything it actually costs you to receive, is still two signatures and one very large number away. Taxes cut the jackpot in half. You're sitting in your car in the parking lot of the same office building you work at, 5 minutes before your lunch break ends, refreshing a banking app that hasn't updated all week. Your badge is still clipped to your shirt. Somewhere on the third floor, your desk still has a sticky note on it reminding you to call a vendor back, because you are, on paper, still just a person with a 9 to 5 and a lunch break that's about to end. Then, the number loads. $201,038,412. You don't move. A guy from accounting walks past your windshield carrying a Chipotle bag and doesn't look at you twice because there's nothing to see. A person in a Honda Civic staring at a phone, same as anyone checking a score or a text. He has no way of knowing that number just replaced every version of your future you'd quietly given up on. It's not $264 million. Grant had warned you about that in his office, and your new CPA, a sharp, unhurried woman named Denise Okafor, whom Grant brought onto the file the same week, walked you through exactly why. The IRS takes 24% off the top automatically, the second the trust claims the prize. No negotiating, no waiting, just gone before the money is even technically yours to spend. On $264 million, that's a little over $63 million, vanished into federal withholding before you've bought a single thing. But Denise had also told you, in the same calm voice she probably uses to deliver worse news to worse people, that 24% isn't the real number. It's a deposit, a prepayment. Because a win this size pushes you straight into the top federal bracket, 37%, and the rest comes due when you file. She'd done the math out loud in her office, tapping a calculator like it was nothing. $264 million at 37% is just under $98 million owed to the federal government. Full stop, no matter how you slice the timeline. Which means the number sitting in your account right now isn't even the final one. It's a placeholder. The real number, after everything the IRS is owed, lands closer to $166.6 million. There's a small mercy in it, and Denise had made sure you understood it as one. Texas doesn't tax lottery winnings. No state income tax at all, one of only 9 states that can say that. If you'd bought that ticket 40 minutes north in Oklahoma, or worse, if you lived in New York, you'd be watching another 8, 9, 10% disappear on top of the federal hit. Instead, what the IRS doesn't take, you keep. All of it. You sit with that number a long moment, $166.6 million, sitting quietly in an account with a trust's name on it, a name that traces back to a creek behind a house you grew up in and nobody else remembers. It doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving something with your bank balance intact. Your lunch break ends in 90 seconds. You lock the phone, clip your badge straighter, and walk back into the building like nothing happened, because as far as the 11 people in that office know, nothing did. You answer an email about a vendor. You reheat coffee that's gone lukewarm. You go through the rest of the day exactly the way you went through yesterday. Except now you're doing arithmetic nobody can see. Working out what a person is supposed to do with $166 million when they can't tell a single coworker it exists. And the first answer you land on isn't a house or a car or anything anyone would notice at all. Hiding wealth behind everyday purchases. The watch boutique is on Highland Park Village in Dallas, 2 hours from your house, which is exactly why you chose it. The man behind the counter, a soft-spoken guy named Preston who's been doing this for 11 years, doesn't blink when you point at the Daytona in the case. White dial, the one with the black ceramic bezel that used to have a wait list longer than most car loans. You pay via wire from an LLC he's never heard of, registered to an address he'll never visit. He wraps it like it's nothing. To him, it is nothing. To you, it's the first physical proof that any of this actually happened. You don't wear it home. It sits in the glove box the whole drive back because a $30,000 watch appearing on your wrist on a random Thursday is the kind of detail Casey would ask about, and you don't have an answer yet that doesn't involve the word trust. The bag is different. That one you actually give her. Hermes Birkin 30, Togo leather, gold hardware. You'd stood in a shop in Houston for 20 minutes deciding, the way people who've never spent this kind of money on purpose second-guess spending it on purpose. You tell Casey it's a bonus from work, a good quarter, commission you'd been quietly saving toward for months. She believes you because there's no reason not to, and you watch her run her hand over the leather with a kind of joy that makes your chest hurt a little. Because the story you just told her is the first real lie you've said out loud since the gas station. The Range Rover comes next, and it comes registered to the LLC too. An SV, long wheelbase, Santorini black, sitting in your garage like a secret you paid $200,000 for. You don't drive it to work. You don't drive it to your mother's. It stays parked, plates registered to a business entity that doesn't have your name anywhere in its paperwork. Driven maybe twice a month, always somewhere far enough from anyone who knows you. None of it. Not the watch, not the bag, not the car sitting under a cover in the garage, is the part that actually matters. That part happens at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday, on a laptop at your kitchen table, after Casey's gone to bed. You've set up a brokerage account under the trust, and Denise walked you through the first move over the phone that afternoon in the same unhurried voice she uses for everything. A chunk of the $166 million parked into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, the same boring instrument every actual financial advisor tells actual people to buy, and nobody ever does. You stare at the confirmation screen for a long moment. It isn't exciting. There's no wrapping paper, no counter, no Preston nodding approvingly. Just a number moving from one account to another, buying a tiny slice of 500 companies you'll never think about again, growing or shrinking in a way that has nothing to do with you checking on it. It's the least glamorous thing you've bought all month, and somehow it's the only purchase that doesn't need an explanation. The only one Casey could see on a shared statement and not ask a single question about. Because to anyone glancing at it, it just looks like saving. Everything else you own now has a story attached to it. That one doesn't need one. And it's that gap between the things you have to explain and the one thing you don't that starts, without you noticing it yet, to feel exactly like standing on a fault line. Your partner almost finds out. Casey's laptop is open on the kitchen counter when you walk in from getting the mail, and she's not looking for anything. She's just trying to log into the shared Delta account to book her sister's flight for Thanksgiving. But your email autofills sometimes on that browser, A leftover habit from a phone you upgraded 2 years ago, and when she clicks the wrong tab, an invoice loads instead of a boarding pass. NetJets, owner services, citation latitude, flight leg, Austin to Aspen, $41,200. You're still holding the mail when you see her face change. What is this? She says, and it isn't really a question. It's the sound of someone doing math they don't want the answer to. You set the mail down slowly, the way you'd set down something that might go off, and for one full second you consider every version of a lie that could survive this. A coworker's account, a mistaken charge, a scam email, and every single one of them collapses before you can say it out loud, because she's already scrolling, and there's another one under it, and another, going back 4 months. Sit down, you say instead, and your voice comes out steadier than you feel, which surprises you almost as much as it does her. You don't tell her everything. Not the number, not yet, not the trust, not Grant's office on the 9th floor. You tell her the smallest true thing you can manage, that you won something, that you've been figuring out how to handle it carefully, that you were scared telling her would change something between you before you'd even worked out how to hold it yourself. She doesn't say anything for a long moment. She just looks at you the way you'd look at someone you weren't sure you still recognized. How long? She says. 7 months. You watch that number land on her the way the withholding number landed on you in the parking lot. Not disbelief exactly. Something heavier, the specific ache of realizing the person across the table has been carrying something enormous alone, on purpose, and choosing every single day not to hand you any of it. You'd told yourself the silence was protecting her. Sitting across from her now, it just looks like distance, dressed up as care. She asks the number eventually, and you tell her the $600 million on the sign, the $264 million in cash, the $166.6 million that's actually yours after the IRS took its 37% and Texas took nothing. She doesn't react to the size of it the way you expected. She reacts to the 7 months. I've been eating leftover Whataburger with you for 7 months, she says. Not quite a laugh, not quite something else, while you had a Range Rover parked somewhere I've never seen. You don't defend it. There isn't a version of the defense that doesn't sound like what it was. You weighed her against the secret more than once, and the secret kept winning. What happens next isn't a scene from a movie. Nobody throws anything. She goes to bed early. You sit alone at the kitchen table, where the index fund confirmation once felt like the safest thing you owned. And you understand, fully, for the first time, what Grant meant that day in his office when he said every name you told was a point of failure. You'd counted Casey as the safe one. You hadn't counted on the cost of making her wait. The secret held. But something else, quieter and harder to price, didn't hold quite as well. And it's that difference you're going to have to live inside from here on. Building a quiet, anonymous fortune. 6 months after the kitchen table conversation, you're standing in a half-built house on a lot in Vineyard Bay, the stretch of Lakeway shoreline where the water goes still and green at the edges of Lake Travis. The listing was $14.2 million before you took it off the market. An LLC bought it, not you. The paperwork routed through Grant's office the same way everything else has been for a year now. Casey's walking the frame of what will be the kitchen, running her hand along a stud wall, and for the first time since NetJet's invoice night, she looks like she's imagining a life instead of interrogating one. You didn't buy this because you wanted people to see it. You bought it because from the water side, there's no road, no mailbox, no neighbor close enough to ask questions. Privacy, priced into the geography itself, which is its own kind of financial decision nobody puts in a brochure. Denise had walked you through the rest of it on a call last month, the way she does everything, unhurried and specific. The $166.6 million isn't just sitting in index funds anymore. A piece of it went into something duller and sturdier, a stake in a regional chain of self-storage facilities outside Round Rock, the kind of asset that doesn't make headlines, doesn't need a website, just collects rent from people storing furniture between moves, month after month, whether the stock market is having a good week or not. It's the same instinct that had a gym manager in Idaho put lottery money into real estate instead of a startup a few years back. Boring, cash flowing, hard to lose overnight. There's a third piece, too, one you asked Denise about specifically. A donor-advised fund, set up under the trust, giving quietly to two things you actually care about: a scholarship fund at the community college near your mother's house, and a veterans housing program 2 counties over. None of it has your name on it. None of it ever will unless you decide, someday, that it should. Your mother still doesn't know. Neither does Trevor, still 2 cubicles down from where your desk used to be before you finally gave your 2 weeks' notice with a reason vague enough not to raise anything. You still buy gas at the same brand of station sometimes, out of habit, though never that one, not since the night the number matched. What you've built is real. The trust holds it, the storage facilities generate it, the index funds compound it quietly in the background, and the house on the water will be finished by spring. On paper, it's exactly the outcome Grant promised you in that glass office over a year ago. Protected, anonymous, growing. What it costs is something no spreadsheet tracks. It's the version of you that used to tell Casey everything, even the boring parts of a Tuesday, now filtering half of every sentence before it leaves your mouth. It's watching your mother worry about her property tax bill and saying nothing, because saying something means saying everything. It's Trevor complaining about his 401k match at lunch, and you nodding along like a person who still needs one. You stand in the unfinished kitchen while Casey talks paint colors, and you realize the fortune isn't the hard part anymore. The hard part is smaller than that, and it doesn't have a dollar figure. It's the exact moment still somewhere ahead of you when someone you love again asks a simple question, and you'll have to decide, one more time, whether the truth is worth what it costs to say out loud. What the money never had to say. You know now what the box on that claim form actually bought you. Not the watch, not the house on the water. The silence itself, chosen on purpose, over and over, every time someone asked, "What's new?" The fortune sits exactly where you built it, quiet and untouchable. What doesn't sit as easily is the version of you that used to answer a simple question without checking it first. Notice it this week, the small moment where you almost say something true and edit it instead. That's not paranoia. That's the actual price, the one no attorney quotes you. Casey still doesn't know about the watch in the glove box. You tell yourself there's time. There's always a next conversation waiting, closer than you think, where the truth costs more the longer you hold it.